Welcome, everyone. This is the DIPG Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Marcelo Ortegal. And today on the podcast, we have Dr. Gioconda Alyea from the National Organization of Rare Disorders, NORD. Dr. Alyea is the Rare Disease and Health Equity Specialist at NORD. She'll be talking to us about rare disorders, of which DIPG, DMG are part of, and the role that NORD plays within the space of rare disorders, particularly brain tumors that we're mostly interested in, but we expand to all rare disorders. NORD has many attributes, one of which is its public database. It's very important to know there are over 10,000 rare disorders identified. NORD's database has about 1,500 of those disorders that have a summary, has an explanation of what the disease is, its outcome, therapies, and so on and so forth. So you should look into that if you're interested in investigating or learning about a particular disorder or a particular tumor or pediatric tumor. You can go in there, you can search for whichever disorder you're interested in, and you might find a very detailed summary of that particular disorder. If you watched my first introductory video a few weeks ago, you noticed that I mentioned that within the United States, there are roughly 30 million Americans who live with a rare disorder, and a similar number of individuals is found in Europe as well. That means about 10% of our population has a rare disorder. So this is why it is important to understand what is that we're dealing with and the role and the significant role that institutions such as NORD play in terms of education, in terms of advocacy, and a number of issues that Dr. Alyea will discuss. With that, I'd like to remind you that if you like what you see in these podcasts, please make sure you subscribe and hit that like button that you will know what's coming up in future podcasts. With that, welcome, Dr. Alyea.
Hello, my name is Gioconda Alyea, and as Marcelo said, I work for the National Organization of Rare Diseases. And today we are going to talk a little bit about NORD, what do we do, and also some things that I consider are important to emphasize. So NORD stands for National Organization of Rare Disorders. I work for a department in NORD that is the Medical Affairs Department. Our mission is to improve the health and the well-being of people with any rare diseases by driving advances in care, research, and policy, and I will also add education here. As you know, the definitions, they vary. In United States, the Orphan Drug Act defines a rare disease as a disease. Our mission is to improve the health and the well-being of people with any rare diseases by driving advances in care, research, and policy, and I will also add education here. As you know, the definitions, they vary. In United States, the Orphan Drug Act defines a rare disease as a disease or condition that impacts less than 200,000 people in the United States. This is a prevalence definition, and this may change in the future. You can see that these definitions, they vary in different countries. I will emphasize the one in the European Union, that is 5 in 10,000, which is the same as 1 in 2,000. And our definition is the one that we only use prevalence in here. Less than 200,000 people in the population, which is about 1 in 1,659 people. You can see other countries in here with different definitions, but all of these are to emphasize what a rare disease is. Actually, most of the rare diseases are ultra rare. That means that they affect less than 1 in 50,000 people, meaning that there are less than 7,000 people in the United States living with these diseases. And then we have the hyper rare diseases that are extremely rare disorders that affect fewer than 1 in 10 million. And I will say this is actually the most common group in rare diseases. So, as Marcelo mentioned, there are about 10,000 distinct conditions, and less than 5% have an approved treatment. Our rare diseases are rare, but more than 300 million people in the world live with rare diseases. In the United States, is about 30 million people. 1 in 10 Americans live with a rare disease. Approximately 80% of the diseases are genetic or are strongly suspected to have genetic cause. And most than 50%, about 70%, present in children. So a little bit about history. How did NORD began? It was rooted in advocacy with a rare disease movement after the passage of what we call the Orphan Drug Act that happened in January 4, 1983. It was funded by patients, caregivers, and patient organization leaders. It's the first national nonprofit organization that care for all rare diseases. So it was formally funded in that year in 83 with the, I will say, with the help of this person called Abby Meyers, who was actually a caregiver of a patient with a rare disease. They united to lobby for the Orphan Drug Act, it's called ODA, that was signed in 1983. And what happened is that this Orphan Drug Act, it provides financial incentives to pharmaceutical companies because, as you know, rare diseases affect few people, so they don't have any profit for the pharmaceutical companies. So they needed to do this in order for the pharmaceutical companies to start development what we call orphan drugs. I will talk a little bit more about that. So the coalition formation started with families and activists to address exactly the lack of treatment for rare diseases. The group was first known as Informal Coalition. And after the Orphan Drug Act was passed in the Congress, the law was signed by the President Reagan in 1983, and the coalition officially incorporated as NORD to represent the rare disease community. The Orphan Drug Act. The Orphan Drug Act is developed specifically to treat a rare medical condition. The law encourages research into rare conditions that were previously considered non-profitable for the pharmaceutical development. So what does it do? It provides incentives that include a 7 years marketing exclusivity, tax credit for clinical trial costs, and fast-track FDA approval. If you look at this was great at the time it was done, but we are still working in this law because, as you know, a lot of treatments for rare diseases are extremely expensive. And this is because when a company make a drug, after the clinical trial phase is over, they have exclusivity, so they don't have any competition. And therefore they can have, a price that is, they can put prices that are really high. So we are still working in this law. Since 1983, the FDA has approved over 800, probably more, a little bit more than 880 orphan products for rare diseases compared to fewer 10 in the decade prior to that. So there has been a lot of firsts for NORD. After the Orphan Drug Act in 1983, we have the Patient Assistance Program. I will talk more about this. This was started in 1987, and then we launched the Office of Rare Disease Research, the Clinical Trials Org. The Office of Rare Diseases Research is now operating as the Division of Rare Diseases Research Innovation within the National Institute of Health, National Center for Advanced Translational Science, NCATS. With these organs, they work to advance research for rare diseases They support clinical studies through the RDCRN, Clinical Research Network, and provide patient information via the GARD, the Genetic and Rare Diseases Information Center. We also have, since 2014, what we call a National Iron Rare Registry, which is a natural history study patient registry. And also we have, I didn't include here, but we have another study that's called Living Rare that is embedded in the Iron Rare Registry. These registries, they will allow patients to put their information there so researchers can easily find the patient information and contact the patients and see if they want to participate in a specific research. Of course, all of this is the patient will say yes or no to this. We also have what we call the network of NORD Rare Diseases Centers of Excellence. I will talk more about this too. So who is NORD today? NORD is this nonprofit organization. Inside NORD, we have several departments: the community engagement, the educational initiatives department, the medical affairs department, which is the one I work for, the membership department, patient services, public policy, and research. Of course, we also have the development, finance, human resources, marketing, information technology, and the strategic programming and planning besides the executive team. So what do we do? I divided this in 4 different points: care, research, policy and action, and community. For many, we are the first step toward having hope, action, and progress. Whether it is help searching for a diagnosis, specialists, clinical trials, we provide easy access to world-class care and expertise. We accelerate and advance innovation and treatment through research grants, studies, patient registries like the one I showed you, Iron Rare and Living Rare, partnerships, and our Rare Disease Center of Excellence network. We are rooted on the advocacy that spurred the movement resulting in the passage of the world's first law, the Orphan Drug Act, and we continue to fight for life-changing laws, policies, and programs today. We support and strengthen a diverse network of more than 340 patient advocacy that are all members of NORD. This organization together serve more than 500,000 rare disease patients. So, talking about financial assistance, and I think this is very important for everybody to know, the financial assistance programs cover out-of-pocket costs such as insurance, premiums, deductibles, copayments, coinsurance. Medication access. NORD helps patients to obtain life-sustaining medication they might not otherwise afford. As you know, and commented before, the prices of treatment for rare disease patients are extremely expensive. We have support for travel assistance for travel costs related to visiting specialists or for participating in clinical trials. We also help with medical services like coverage that may include diagnostic, lab services, and specialized supported therapy. We offer a caregiver support where funds are available for short-term caregiver respite, allowing the caregivers to hire help or to attend conferences, for example. And NORD provides a rare disease database, webinars, and educational resources. Now, I will be talking a little bit more about all of this and clarifying what specifically is what we do. Because the financial assistance is only for certain specific rare conditions, for example. So the direct financial assistance, the patient services financial assistance, the respite program, and the educational support, we have a support helpline that you can call this number, 1-800-999-6673. We work from Monday to Thursday from 8:30 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. We also have people who talk in Spanish. And there is a dedicated number for that, 844-259-7178 para asistencia en español. So we have provided assistance to about 3.5 million in premium payments, 26.5 million in prescription. These programs provide access to care, treatment, diagnostic, and clinical trials participation for more than 6,000 individuals. But I'm going to talk more about this because I don't want this to be misleading. These patient assistance programs are only for people who qualify for it that are affected with a specific rare condition, and mainly about the ones that are covered by the memberships support organizations that are part of NORD. So if you go to NORD, for example, and you see the NORD Patient Assistance Program, you will filter by program times, you will filter by program status, and then you will find if you qualify to be helped financially. The respite program, it's very interesting because it really is to help the caregivers who are, I will say, the most important people for the patients. They provide financial assistance to enable the caregivers a break. And if you go to the NORD website, you will see that the awards are granted on a first come, first service basis to eligible individuals. There is no fee to apply, and we have the number 203-616-4328 and also an email where you can begin your application. Now, I wanted to talk about the NORD Rare Diseases Center of Excellence program, which aims to diagnose children who have a rare disease as early as possible after symptoms begin and advance signs, so more rare diseases can be diagnosed, also adults. The idea of this network was because we wanted to find these hospital, these academic centers in United States that have doctors with experience in rare diseases. So we established a process where we had like a well thought criteria with several pages that we sent it to different academic centers that wanted to be part of this network. To know if they met the criteria to be considered a rare disease center of excellence, which means they have a multidisciplinary team where they can care for people affected with any rare disease. So they are working together to make this vision a reality, and it was started in 2021. Together, these NORD Rare Disease Center of Excellence are diagnosing and treating thousands of rare disease patients and also are researching actively about treatments for new patients, for new diseases. So if you go to our website, you will see a center directory where you can find all of the centers of excellence that are distributed in about 26 different states, and you will see you can find the one center that is closest to you. But this is a network. So our goal will be for a patient that is seen in one specific center to also, if there are any expert in other centers, they will be able to act as a network so the patient can benefit from the expertise from other people, from other doctors in other centers of excellence as well. This is an ongoing project, so we are always trying to make it work better. Also, Marcelo was talking about the NORD Rare Disease Database. The NORD Rare Disease Database is an inclusive and comprehensive list of rare diseases based on information from established rare disease ontologies. Because NORD is not an ontology, we are just a support organization. But this is an ongoing project made possible by a close collaboration with Mondo. Mondo is a project that is unifying all the ontologies. So they work with Orphanet, the European database for rare disorders, and OMIN, which is the online Mendelian inheritance in men. So what is included in the NORD rare disease database? We have more than 10,000 rare diseases. It's almost about 12,000 diseases. And this database includes the NORD rare disease reports. These reports provide detailed information about the symptoms, the cause, the diagnosis, the treatments, the clinical trials, the support resources, including the patient advocacy organizations. And each report includes references from textbooks, articles, websites, government agencies. Now, we only have about 1,480 NORD reports in English, and we have about 600 something reports in Spanish. For the ones rare diseases that are the most of them that do not have a NORD rare disease report, we have information from respected sources like Orphanet, OMIN, the National Cancer Institute, GARD, the Genetic and Rare Information Center, and some other from different organs from the NIH. Some of these additional resources have technical language, so you may want to talk to your healthcare provider about it. NORD also provides many reports in Spanish, as I mentioned, and also additional translation can be requested by contacting us. Here I want to say that recently we partnered with what is like a platform called Open Evidence, and our goal is to have NORD reports for all the rare diseases, and this is going to be soon. We hope that in these next 2 years we will have NORD reports for most of the rare more 10,000 diseases that we have. So if you go to the website, you will see what we call the NORD rare disease database, where you can get the information that I was talking about a rare disease. You will use a form to explore the rare disease database, and then you will see, you will click in there. The database is in alphabetical order, but you can put over there the name of your disease, and you will see the disease that you're looking for. And then it will come the information. If we have a NORD report, it will show the NORD report. If not, it will show the information from the other sources that I mentioned. So the sources for the rare disease list that I already mentioned are the Mondo disease ontology that works with all these ontologies, with OMIN, Orphanet, and GARD, and also work with the CDC, Agency for Toxic Substance and Disease Registry, the American Association of Poison Control Centers, the National Cancer Institute, and also with PubMed articles. As I mentioned, the list is about 12,000 diseases. What is important to also mention is the Mondo disease ontology, because they are harmonizing all the disease definitions, not only rare diseases. They work for all diseases, but we are today focusing only in the rare diseases. So they also annotate each mapping, so the synonyms are identified among the ontologies. And this was a problem before, because, as you know, a rare disease can have different names in the different ontologies, and that's a problem for the patient. Sometimes a patient is given a name, and when they try to find the disease, they cannot find it. So what we are aiming to is to have all this information in our website. So when a patient click in their disease, they will find it with the synonym they are using. So now I will talk a little bit about the Patient Advocacy Group Network. NORD has 330 patient organization members. There are more than 1,000 in our organizational database and 570 leaders engaged in member-face group. With 300 rare launch students, we have 28 leaders involved in Rare Cancer Coalition. This is very important because all these organizations, these support organizations, are specific to rare disease. So they are completely dedicated to this rare disease. So another important thing that we are focusing are the resources for people who have undiagnosed disease. People can spend many years without finding a diagnosis. We have recently published some relevant information that we think is very helpful for patients and families, including an infographic about the diagnostic odyssey, is the time that people spend trying to find a diagnosis, an undiagnosed rare disease patient webpage, a parent guide to a rare disease diagnosis, which was created by some doctors that work in the Rare Disease Network, the Center of Excellence, and resources for patients. And also we have several courses for patients that are called Rare Education, because also many physicians do not have experience with rare diseases. It is important to identify and to create tools, training, or decision aids that they could help them to recognize the red flags for that, what we call red flags for rare diseases. Diagnosis, especially for primary care physicians, particularly for pediatricians, as most of rare diseases occur in children. So we have also created some relevant resources that I wanted to emphasize today, especially what we call the PSP primer to diagnosing rare diseases directly for primary care physicians. We also had the Continuum Medical Education (CME), and we had a CME video library. So students or doctors from different specialties can find these courses, these educational courses. Many of them also offer credit where they can learn more about rare diseases. This is a picture of some of the videos that we have. You can see that some of them were translated to Spanish. So we have several. These are for patients. We also have what we call the State Resource Center, and we also have and will have the whole website in Spanish. Right now we have some of the information in the website translated to Spanish, what we call NORD en Español. But our plan is to have the whole website in Spanish too, soon too. So I mentioned that NORD also is involved in policies. And as you know, as I already said, it was actually rooted in policies because we started with the Orphan Drug Act. So we continue with a policy team that primarily supports efforts to improve the health and the well-being of people with rare diseases by driving advances in policy. There is a link that you can go in the website and you can get involved in advocacy there. The problem that we identified is that elected officials often do not understand the challenges that people with rare diseases face, and they don't know how to help or how they can hurt if they don't know what they are doing. So NORD works to elevate the voice of the rare disease community in government by identifying the policy problems and advocating for solutions that can benefit all as our rare disease patient community. So one of the main things doing in policy is what we call the Rare Disease Advisory Council. This was actually created by patients and advocates, but we have a big part on it. We try to optimize the existing rare diseases advisory councils and increase the number of what they are called RDAC, and we try to increase the number across the country. You can see that 27 states have signed this legislation into law. What they are trying is to make the state government and all the people that works in the government more aware of the challenges that rare disease patients encounter, and to try to contribute to have laws that can benefit these patients. I also wanted to mention the government and the research perspective major initiatives in supporting rare disease work. So the national, I mentioned some of them before, but in this slide, I want to show specifically what they do. The National Institute of Health, through the National Center for Advanced Translational Science, sponsor the Genetic and Rare Disease Information Center, GARD. They offer accessible patient-friendly information about thousands of rare conditions. As they has changed lately, they don't have specific reports for each disease, but they still have information that can be very useful. NCATS also leads the Rare Disease Clinical Research Network, the RDCRN, that is a network of consortia studying over, I will say, 300 rare diseases. And they support the patient and provider engagement in clinical research, the clinicaltrials.gov that we talk about, that helps people search for relevant studies and understand how to contact the trial sites and the researchers. And the genetic testing registry that provides information about which laboratories offer tests for specific genes and conditions. Now, I will not talk about the DIPG because this is something Marcelo has talked a lot, mostly, but he was the one who helped us to create our specific NORD report that has all this specific information about the diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma. And I want to also talk about what are rare cancers. Rare cancers affect fewer than 40,000 people per year in the United States. So you can see it's a little different for our prevalence definition. As defined by the National Cancer Institute, rare cancers occur in fewer than 15 out of 100,000 people, which is the less than 40,000 people per year in the United States. In Europe, the rare cancers are identified as those with an incidence of less than 6 per 100,000 persons per year. So we are a little less strict than the European Union in the definition for rare cancers. Together, they make up about 25% of all cancer diagnoses. They are often harder to diagnose and treat because of the few knowledge about what the cancer is. There is limited research, fewer clinical trials because there are so few people affected in comparison with common cancers. So many times patients may need to travel to find specialized care. And in most cases, there is no specific treatment for these rare cancers. And this is still the sad reality we have. So I try just to say the types of rare cancer, like pediatric cancer, that are actually the most common in rare cancers, like the DIPG, the rare brain tumor that also will be the DIPG will be part of, blood cancers like some types of leukemias and lymphomas, sarcomas, neuroendocrine tumors, or rare genetic and inherited cancer that also include some syndromes where people have a greater susceptibility to have a specific type of cancer. So I wanted also to talk a little bit about the National Cancer Institute, the goals and resources. They support research on rare cancers and new treatments. They fund clinical trials and collaborative studies. They provide patient resources and information, develop targeted therapies based on genetics, encourage data sharing to improve outcomes, and offer access to specialized cancer centers. the resources, I wanted to put also this slide because there are resources for rare cancer patients. In case you don't know about all of these resources, the National Cancer Institute, they offer what I said, the cancer information, the clinical trials, and they have a helpline, 1-800-4-cancer. They have also what is a specifically network, specifically office only for rare cancer. That's called My PART. It's My Pediatric and Adult Rare Tumor Network. It's a group of scientists, patients, family members, advocates, and healthcare providers who want to help find treatment for rare cancers. So you can sign up for news. They have they have an email where you can sign to, so you can always have news about the tumor resources, or you can get involved in rare tumor research. They also have you can also learn more about their natural history trial for rare tumor patients. They have an email for that. And also, if you want to join a clinical trial at the NIH Clinical Center, they have a phone number. It's 1-888-624-1937. And they also have a recruitment office where you can talk with somebody at 1-800-411-1222. Another important resource is the American Cancer Society. They offer transportation, help with, and several different kind of help. The clinical trials go that I mentioned before, and also the Rare Cancer Alliance that offer education and help finding a specialist. Try to go back to Dr. Marcelo.
Thank you. Thank you, Gioconda. This is very illuminating and extremely informative. And I think our viewers will really appreciate having that information available. And obviously, they will be able to stop and look at the specifics of each slide and figure out information. And as I always say, if you have questions as you go through this, and there are things that Dr. Alyea mentioned or presented on the slides that you have questions, you can send an email to us again. The email is the DIPG Podcast at markjr.org, and I'll have on the screen. But if I may, Gioconda, I'd like to ask a few questions just to possibly clarify a few things a little bit. And you gave a really expanded analysis of what NORD does, and some of the things that I have to confess I did not know, and I think it's critical for some of our viewers. So one point is the issue with the potential patient support, financial
assistance.
Right, which has to be defined according to whatever condition the patient has. And so they have to call in and find out if
they are eligible. Yeah,
exactly. Do you know if would you be able to advance if the IPG or other pediatric brain tumor fall within that category of potential financial?
I should have seen that, but I wanted to share a screen again because I want to show the website. I will say we have a lot of resources, but to be honest, we still are working to organize it better because you can get lost in the website or so many things that are there. So
before that they call in. So either they call in, talk to one of the attending people on the phone,
yes,
and
yes,
provide their information. Exactly. They might be able to guide them through the system, and potentially even immediately provide an answer whether they qualify or not. But at least they provide the guidance that they may seek. And this is something that is critical because and you've seen in your career, and I've seen not only in my career when I was a professor of preventive medicine, but navigating the issue with the IPG when Juliana was diagnosed, are the fees and the costs and the travel and all the things that many families have to go through. And this is obviously a significant financial burden to many of the families in terms of the fact that they may not have a very comprehensive health insurance, so they have to come with out-of-pocket expenses, or many things are not covered by their insurance, and there are many things that they might want to do. And this is a possibility. This is something that NORD may actually offer. And so they do need to reach out to NORD, talk to the people, get the information that they need to get, and they may be eligible to financial assistance for clinical trial, for traveling to clinical trial, even get some medication, and the medications are really expensive. We in the DIPG, so we know that, and very recently we had the first DIPG drug, or not only DIPG, but DIPG DMG drug that was FDA approved. It was just last August of 2025, and the direct cost for this particular drug is astronomical.
Astronomical.
And
As I said, the Orphan Drug Act, because of the incentives they give and it really has to change in many aspects so we can afford the medication, because it doesn't matter if it exists, you cannot afford it.
right, it is out of reach for the vast majority of the patients. So either the act will have to be revisited, some of pricing control maybe have to be established there, looking at what was actually invested in terms of the research development that led to that particular drug to be approved. And a lot of the costs we know is federally funded. That these are federal monies that go into universities or go into small biotech companies that receive the grants from the federal government to continue their research. And then when they come up with something that is effective against any particular disease, they will charge whatever it is that they can get away with, essentially. And it typically is what they claim is, oh, this is market driven. Well, yeah, market driven, but we have to be a little more conscious about what the economy allows us to charge, and not just be market driven and charge $5,000 for one pill or something like that, which is
Exactly.
most of us think is absurd, and I would tend to agree with that.
And to answer your question, I don't see that we have a specific financial assistance for diffuse intrinsic pontine glioma yet. I do think that it's also also always important to call, and I will say also to send an email, not just call.
Because it becomes documented. You have on your hand, and there's it on.
And also because sometimes, like for example, we don't have, but we have a member organization that is the National Brain Tumor Society, and they may have some kind of assistance. So it can be that they offer some financial assistance too, or other things and they are part of NORD. So caregiver respite program, I think that's important too. It's not a lot of money, to be honest, Marcelo, but it is something that can allow what we said to take a break.
So there is a little bit of money that could be provided to this caregiver, a family member or relative or whatever of the patient, a small amount of money that can allow this individual to attend the meeting, to learn a bit more about not only what the disease is, but potentially how to better take care of the relative who's affected by that particular disease.
Exactly. And as I said, I want to emphasize that I don't want to be misleading. As I said, we don't provide a financial assistance for these specific conditions in there. But it's always important to call and to send the message, because in the message, I think the information provided may be more detailed. Like even in the email, we can provide information from another external sources that may be helpful for patients, children. So I will also.
I want to sort of circle back to one point that you made and just kind of remind the audience. In my introduction, when I talked about rare, I mentioned that the label of rare diseases was varied depending on the situation that you found yourself in. So it was relative. And you posted a slide that had the breakdown of the number of cases per country. So this is important for folks who are watching the podcast who come from different countries, and you can compare and see what the breakdown is for a disease or disorder to be qualified as rare. But it's very important to know that a couple of things that you mentioned. Children make the vast majority of the rare cases, as all pediatric cancers are also rare, and we have a very large number of pediatric cancers identified in the database. And obviously, as you mentioned as well, many of them have the summary or the description that folks can go on the site and read the detailed description about that particular cancer. But it's interesting that we currently have nearly 40,000 cases of cancer. So this is, why cancers are rare, because they fall under 40,000 cases of cancers per year. But when you add them up, the number of cancers that go from not only pediatric but include adult cancers, those numbers can grow very, very quickly, and they're still qualified as rare. And again, it's a conundrum that if you find yourself in the rare condition, or a family member or your child, it's a conundrum that you have to face as to when you look around and you learn that so many people have had this diagnosis. Why is this still called rare? Why is this, why don't we,
I will say this what you're mentioning, it was in Europe, they started looking at this. Like, for example, I will say testicular cancer is a rare cancer, but is treated. So, the prevalence in there will not work very well. So that's why the incidence work better in there. So in Europe, less than 6 per 100,000 people per year, and here less than 15 per 100,000 people per year. So, that actually fixed the prevalence part that you are mentioning, because some of these cancer, they will have a treatment, but most of them don't. So the numbers, don't show in the definition of prevalence. So that's
remind you, prevalence is the number of cases that you have established over a
specific period of
a very large period of time. So you expect that number to be maintained. But then you may have, obviously, there are variations between different years. Some years you may have more, some years you have less. But when you look across the multiple number of years, that is sort of the number that you expect. So somewhat of an average.
So that's why we usually use incidence in here, for the cancers.
Okay, so anything else that we need to talk about, or I think we covered quite a bit. I think our viewers
will. It's a pleasure to be here today. I hope that I show a little bit about what NORD does, and that some will find that helpful.
Yeah, I absolutely think so. And with that, I will thank you so much for your detailed explanation, for your visit to the channel, and we're looking forward to you coming back to the channel and potentially. And again, if viewers have questions, please submit your questions or any comments to the DIPG Podcast at markjr.org. That will be on the screen. And if I cannot answer your question specifically, I'll reach out to Dr. Alyea again, and hopefully she'll be able to answer specific questions about NORD. But again, as you mentioned, you call in. There are people answering the phones. They have in English and in Spanish, so you can request to talk to somebody, and they will provide the information that you are seeking, and hopefully that will be very helpful.
Thank you very much, Marcelo.